Good. Are we still phoning in?
Yes.
Let me know when we're up and running ready. You good?
Yeah.
All right. You're going to call to order the Effingham County Board of Commissioners meeting this November 3rd, 2020 at 5 o'clock p.m. I ask everyone if they would please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance to our flag. Heavenly Father, we come tonight to transact the business of the county and the things that are before us. We pray for your wisdom and discernment as we make decisions that will be pleasing to you and will edify those that are seeking decisions from this council tonight. Thank you for this board and the wise counsel that they bring. And Father, we pray for our country tonight as we go to the elections and make a choice of the leaders for the next several years. We pray that you would grant grace and peace and transition well what happens tonight, Lord God. We just pray that your blessings and your will be done. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on our agenda then is the approval of the agenda. And I was handed another agenda, so there's correction or addition.
Those is typos on that agenda, but we do have a change on the agenda, Mr. Chairman. Staff is requesting under old business, items number 7 and 8. This is for Terramore Development to rezone 1.12 acres out of 1.7 acres on McCall Road from AR1 to B3. The request is for these items to be postponed until the November 17th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the noted changes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. DeLoach, second by Mr. Loper, to approve the agenda with the noted changes. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And we have our agenda. Next item is consideration to approve the minutes of the October 20th meeting. I was not present. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second. Motion by Mr. DeLoach, second by Mr. Burdette to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. We welcome our public tonight, all our constituents who are here for this time of meeting. The agenda, you have it before you, or you got a copy. It's on the website, at our clerk's office. If you've had a chance to review the materials and documents and you're ready to make any comments at the appropriate time. Recommended comments could be 2 to 3 minutes. That'd be great. So others who might want to comment on the item would be able to do so. And with those comments, we'll move into our consent agenda, item number 8. There are 3 items on our consent agenda, and I'll read those out and get a motion. Consideration to approve to amend section 2.07 substance abuse of the Effingham County Human Resource Standards of Practice. Item number 2, consideration to approve to amend the section 5.07 jury duty of the Effingham County Human Resource Standard Practice. And item number 3, which is a policy also, consideration to approve to amend section 6.09 political activity of the Effingham County Human Resource Standards of Practices. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. DeLoach to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And the consent agenda is approved. Moving into old business, we have a second reading on number 1 in old business.
Regina Oliver.
Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Anzgale of pronounce that right, LLC, to rezone 8 acres out of 72.15 acre parcel from AR1 to I1 for a surface mine map number 419, parcel number 1A in the first district. Do you have a motion to approve second reading?
Make a motion to approve second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 2 under old business, is an ordinance, consideration to approve the first reading of a speed ordinance to reduce the existing vehicular speed limit on Ralph Long Station Road as it approaches Highway 21 from 55 to 45 miles per hour. This is the first reading. Any discussion?
This is the second reading,
Second
Mr.
reading.
Chairman. The first reading was on the 20th of October.
Okay, it says first reading in the minutes.
It's
In general.
the revised agenda you have on the
Yeah,
first
you
page,
got the
number
revised
2.
agenda to be approved.
I have the notes in mine, so I didn't use the revised. So this is the second reading, so I'll just ask for a motion for the second
Make
reading.
a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Burdette, to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Yeah, I've got all the notes in my agenda of all the different stuff. If I missed something, don't bring it to my attention.
That should be it.
It's hard to look at two agendas. Item number 3, consideration to approve the first reading of an amendment to Part 2, Chapter 14, Article V5, telecommunications regulations of the Code of Ordinance of Effingham County. And this is approved the second reading as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion to approve the second reading.
Make a motion to approve second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second by Mr. Deloche, to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Carries. Item number 4 is that a second reading as well?
Yes, sir.
Change that. Okay. Consideration to approve the second reading of amendments to Part 2, Appendix C, Article 5, uses permitted in District Section 5.1 of the Code of Ordinance of Effingham County. Motion to approve second reading.
Make a motion to approve second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 5, public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Chad Zipper to rezone 15 acres out of 107.64 acre parcel located on Hodgeville Road from AR1 to B3 for future development. Map number 417, parcel number 1 in the second district. This was postponed from the last meeting, so we'll hear from our staff first and then we'll see what discussion we have and what information.
So this is a request to rezone 15 of a larger 107-acre tract on Hodgeville Road. The proposal is to use it initially for mini storage, and as a rezoning, staff had no real issue with it. However, the 15 acres being rezoned to B3 on Hodgeville did seem a little out of character. So we added a stipulation, we suggested a stipulation that a site plan for any changes to the current, mini storage be submitted and come through the commissioners again. The applicant requested that stipulation be removed, and then there was a good deal of discussion among the commissioners at the last meeting about whether we needed to add conditions or restrict use to mini storage or allow B3. There was just a good bit of discussion, and they requested staff to look at the stipulations again. So we do have some modifications that we could suggest. And there are two. So one would be that if you were to approve this rezoning to B3, that it would be conditioned on that property being used just for mini storage, so that the application is for mini storage, and we take it at face value and rezone it just for mini storage, and that if any other use would be presented to us in the future for the remainder of the acreage, that would then have to come back before the Board of Commissioners, the Planning Board and Board of Commissioners as essentially a rezoning or a removal of the condition, a rezoning, a re-rezoning. Make this conditional like we did for the warehouse on Chin Road, just restricting the B3 use to the mini storage, and if additional uses were requested in the future, then it would have to come back through as a rezoning to essentially remove that condition. So that's the first stipulation. That's an amendment of the stipulation that we initially placed on it. And then the second is in addition to an existing stipulation. We always include the subdivision plat must be approved by the zoning administrator, but in this case, we also added and recorded with the Superior Court in order for the rezoning to take effect. So just to ensure that all steps take place, that if the rezoning is approved, that the plat separating those 15 acres must be go through the usual
third
process.
condition would require that for this zoning, if it were approved tonight to take place, they would subdivide that 15 acres from the rest of the parcel.
Mhm.
So it would be.
Yes, we would know exactly where
The
it is.
conditional use would only fall that 15 acres
Yes.
and would not apply to the acre count.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you. A point of clarification for me, if you would, I see we have a public hearing. Was a public hearing held last week, and was that continued this week, or is this just for discussion? So we need to open the public hearing tonight. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this item, and we'll see if there's anyone else that, I assume that was speaking for or against, anyone else wanting to speak for this tonight or against. Since we already have it, we'll just see what additional comments are.
Good evening. My name is Travis Bazemore with EMC Engineering here representing the applicant, and the applicant is here too if he needs to address anything, but I'll try to address what I can. I was kind of trying to take all that in because that was the first that I'd heard of this new stuff, but I think the thing last time was, we had asked for the stipulation, the applicant had asked for the stipulation to be removed. He just wants to be treated fair, and I know you just went through this with the warehouse, but I guess I could just, you going down kind of a road where now you're going to be looking at you had another item on tonight that it was removed for B3 zoning. They've said Dollar General is going to go there. Who's to say that they change their mind and do anything? So, it don't really make sense, and to me the acreage is kind of irrelevant. It's 15 acres, but it could be 2 acres or 5 acres. Once you get rezoned to B3, it can change. Yes, he said it's going to be mini storage, but it could change. Well, they've said it could be Dollar General, and I'm not picking on them, but it could change. So, there was a comment made last time by one of the commissioners is you kind of micromanaging, and you almost need a use. For what I was hearing, you almost need a zoning for every use, and I just don't think that's I don't think that's the direction that y'all want to go in. And as far as the site plan, the site plan is going to be reviewed by staff and engineer. The county used to look at site plans, so any site plan that comes back before y'all, y'all used to do that, and you got away from it. So, and I'm not real sure why, but looking at every site plan for every development, y'all don't do that anymore. Y'all just do rezoning. So it just didn't really make sense to make this applicant do it when yes, you made the warehouse people, you restricted it to one use, but you have zonings and you have classes, and you can have a discussion all day about maybe some of those classes need to be in another zoning, but at the time of the submittal, he has to go by the rules that are in effect. So that's kind of where he asked for approval of the rezoning with none of those stipulations.
Okay, we'll consider having some discussion in a minute. I think I understand your objection. Is anyone else speaking for this tonight? Chair?
My name is Chad Zipper. I am the applicant. Once again, what Travis said, the only reason I went for B3 because that's what I had to have. B2 would have worked. I don't plan, actually I want to put the storage in the back of the field. There's a field up front, 7 acre, actually our parcel's 7 acres of the field. I want the storage up in the back. I want actually commercial road frontage up front for retail. I don't want to, you know, I don't like the auto body repair. I'm not into that. I mean, there's also a planned development already right up the road that has an 18-acre parcel designated for commercial. It's not zoned that now, but they would have to go through a lot less applications than I would to get it rezoned. And that's all I'm saying. A B1 or B2 would work, but I just went for B3 because that was the cheap.
You understand that B3 is on one that allows mini storage at this time?
Yeah.
I think it's the chairman's thoughts in encouraging the board to find a way to work and provide what you're asking, but there are some concerns that we need to discuss tonight. Hope we find a good, at the end of the day, this meeting, have something that will work.
Yeah, because right now, as it stands, it is a detriment to the landowner and to myself as it is currently zoned. And we have had no public objection. The county has not presented any evidence that it would be do public harm and or impact the communities at all. So I don't see why it would be not rezoned. I mean, that's just, I'm just trying to say that we've had no opposition. I went and met with the homeowners associations, and I'm not going to sit here and, you know, they ask questions, they ask tough questions, a lot more tougher than y'all are, and I just had to answer them. I mean, it's just the way it is. But they didn't have.
We may have some more questions for you, but I appreciate that.
All right, thank
Anyone else tonight speaking for it? Anyone tonight that is speaking in opposition to this zoning request? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. We may have some more discussion with them. We'll discuss it upon the commission. I want to make a couple comments and then just see what kind of resolve we can have. I like what we have here. The concern that I have for our county is that, we kind of just open this up a little bit. I do believe that our comprehensive plan is what we looked at. In the Hodgeville corridor, I do believe there's an amount of square footage on each side of that road that should be considered for commercial use. You have that on 21 and other good corridors where you got your retail in front, you got Silverwood behind it. It works good for the right retail, office, commercial, and those things. So I think it's good that we look toward getting commercial. We need that in that area. That balances our residential, gives us the tax base we need to pay our bills. And residential taxes, as we know, do not cover the cost of schools and roads and all that stuff. So with that in mind, the issue we have before us is the only place mini storage is B3. But that opens up something I am concerned about, so we don't become some of these cities around us that has these mechanic shops. I know that's not your intention, but tomorrow you die and somebody else buys the land and it's B3. So that's what we're faced with in trying to clean up some of these ordinance issues, is how can we provide in my opinion, I'll see what you said when I finish this, can we provide a B1 or B2 down the road for this and have a way that we can have good retail, good commercial, professional retail outlets or whatever stores, and accomplish this and get mini storage. What I hear tonight is that there might be a proposal to approve the B3, and I'll see what your other alternatives are, with the condition that this 15 acres is subdivided off. Because I did have a talk with the applicant, and we made clear that the whole parcel is what you got to consider. We don't want to do a parcel. So we can approve the B3 with the condition that 15 acres would be subdivided off, and that it would only be used at this point for mini storage. That's not going to be the goal for the future. We want to clean this up. But then the applicant can come back to the board for any other commercial that we would probably be okay with it as B1, B2, and not the other type of items. Or you could reapply for B1 and B2, but you would have the use that you need now if that meets your current need. In my feeling is we would not deny the other allowable uses, but we'd like to make sure we don't get all those B3 in there.
But in the process, would he have to go, or are you suggesting he would have to go through the whole process, planning board, or he would just come straight to the board of commissioners?
Well, I had a discussion similar to that with our attorney, and I'd like, Mr. Lee, if you could weigh in here, since we've had a public hearing on the B3, if we came back and we were able to restrict that to a B1 or B2, because public hearing, they had a chance to discuss all three zonings, could we not, since we are the ultimate zoning board, at that time, without going through a 6-month or 4-month process, approve an application for the rest of that land, not rest of that, 15 acres B2, because at that time, we may even have to be storage, I hope, correctly put under B2 as an allowable use and B1 as a
Well,
conditional.
you already have commercial on that, you got a concrete plant and a concrete plant on Hodgeville Road, so it wouldn't be nothing new. And a B3, I mean, if he wants to put warehouses there on part of it, he might want to put something else. If he does, he can just come to us and we can okay it, but he got it already.
And that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, he can just come to us and we can approve those other big things. The only thing that I have a concern about, if this board's concerned about, if it's about, and I don't want to use some local cities, but we know some areas we drive down some nice roads and they got these mechanic shops and they're loud, they got logging yards, and we don't want that around that area, I don't think, so we need to protect it. If that's the board's.
He also owns all the land around it.
Yeah, if that's the board's.
That's
decision,
true,
then I'm
but that's the
gonna-
reason that prompted my question, what else can go in B3? I mean, I'm in agreement, and I had a conversation with Phil, that, self-storage should be right there in the neighborhoods. It shouldn't be so,
Exactly.
I mean, that's where they need to be.
So I think we're in agreement, if I'm in agreement with you, what you're saying, you got to do the B3, let him do the other, come back for the other commercial uses, we can approve those one or two at a
He's
time,
already
or
got,
he can rezone it to
he
be.
don't have to go back to rezoning, he's already got the zoning he needs for it.
Last meeting, we were talking about this, and we brought up, instead of trying to go from such a broad zone of B3 and try to restrict it backwards again, there's a possibility, why don't we go to A1, or AR1 with a conditional use for it until we can work on some of these other things. I'm concerned for the applicant, I don't want him to have to wait on us to fix everything along that road. Right now on Hodgeville, I realize there's stuff on the other side of the road, but on this side of the road, there is zero commercial, all the way along Hodgeville, the entire length of it until you get in Chatham County. So, we got a lot of work to do in that area. We got a lot coming in. Everybody knows that. We did the AR1 with the conditional. He could come back later and get what he needs based on what we were able to come up with later. But this will not slow him down other than a couple of meetings. He has to go back through them, of course. But he would have what he needs to do to continue with what he wants to do. And that was first priority for me. I want him to be able to continue on and do it, but do it in a way to where we can come back and work on this stuff, and in the meantime, we can proceed with the storage. And that would,
Let me give a little response to that, if you mind seeing anything about this. I agree with what you're saying, but that would require, then you're going from an AR back to a B1, B2, that's going to have the whole process going again. If we were to approve the B3 tonight, and Lee, correct me if I'm wrong on this, if we approve the B3 tonight with those restrictions, okay, mini storage only, will come back to us, it frees the applicant to do those commercial things that we think are okay for that area B1 and B2. And they would not have to come back to a rezoning to use it for B1 or B2. If we did what you're suggesting now, Mr. Burdette, you would have to come back through the rezoning, it might take 4 months, and that may impact what he's trying to accomplish.
If we do not have a maximum of B3 zoning, if we had a maximum B3 zoning, if we had 10 acres, he couldn't do it, but we don't have no maximum B3 zoning. There's no maximum B3 zoning.
Everybody's question is maximum B3.
The question is can we approve the B3 so that he has the opportunity to do a B1 or B2 with our permission? Like next week comes with B1, we can say, yeah, you can do that. That fits the category we're trying to do, so we get it cleaned up.
Right.
If you go to AR1 with conditional use, that's not an option. You'll have to go back through zoning to use a B1 or B2.
But I think when you rezone a parcel, either you're going to rezone it or not, is the way I look at it. I mean, and as of today, he checks the boxes of B3 because he has the road frontage on the parcel he wants to separate out. And I agree with Commissioner Burdette about the current commercial that's in the area, because there's really not in that area. But as we talk about it, we look at it. The parkway is really happening. It's coming through there. Our water sewer infrastructure is being looped in that area. I think that whole area, in the next 10 years will definitely change. And I don't disagree there may be some things we need to clean up within the zonings, but as of today, he's applied for D3. I know I called the applicant myself. I think he's currently in the design process for the new storage facility. And I just think he's applied for it, he checks the boxes, and we need to do D3 or not. I just worry about us trying as the engineer said earlier, I was worried we're micromanaging too much. And if we micromanage this much on this request, then I think we're going to get bogged down in future requests if we start going down this road. But I could be out in left field, but that's just what I think.
Let me see how you feel about this. My concern with that is I don't want to micromanage, and I think we won't be micromanaging if we are going to open up to do any B1 or B2 with that zoning we're going to approve tonight if we do it. My concern if you do B3 and you don't put the conditions that our staff has recommended, someone down the road says, I'm going to put a mechanic shop in. How are you going to stop me? You just approved the B3 with no restrictions. If we do the restrictions, we're able to say, hey, we recognize a commercial corridor as a commission. We're going to redo our comp plan to show that for the future of one of these discussions, you know. We're not micromanaging, but we're just trying to make sure that we don't get a corridor where we have a diesel repair shop and logging operation of these things that are not conducive around residential areas. That's why I like for this one to do the B3 with the condition of step down, come back so we don't slow him down from any commercial he wants to do, and just present that.
So if we did the B3 with the conditions like she read, we could do that tonight.
We could do that tonight, and we would not stop and have to make sure Mr. Chad Sitrow would accept these conditions. But if you want to come back and do a retail or whatever that we believe is okay, I think we're all saying that tonight. We just show other things. And he would just come present that and we say, yes, sir. And that, we'll add that to the allowable use. So it wouldn't restrict.
Still split the parcel though. I mean, you
You've
would.
got to set about a parcel because we can't zone a partial. You know what I'm saying? We can only zone the parcel. Does that make sense? We can't do 15 acres of
Yeah, you got to survey that out.
That's got to be a condition we have to do. And I'm just
So
still
that's
trying.
going to have to be along the road frontage, or is he willing to do that along the road frontage?
Yeah,
If he's
15 acres.
saying that he wanted to put it in the back, not the front.
Well, I think he's talking about in the back.
Back to the last part. Yeah.
So I think
He had all the road frontage.
Yes, sir.
the applicant would have to agree to these conditions if the board would accept it. B3 with condition that you subdivide to 15 acres. And then you can come back to the board for any other business use, knowing that, I just want to go on the record that we would probably deny the mechanics and workshop, those things that B3 that are hard commercial that are not conducive to residential, but the B1 and B2, those things would move forward. I would think that we'll move forward. And that sends a clear message to those folks who might want to try to get B3 around the area zone and put some stuff that's not conducive. Don't apply.
Or at least, you know, one thing about the industrial side of that, Mr. Zipper's property is off the road, and it looks fine.
The only way I can see going down that road, I don't like the idea of, I know what you're trying to say, but it sounds like every time he wants to do something, he has to come back.
Well,
I think I would do it, I would consider it under the premise that we get the self-storage in the proper place where there are other uses of where it needs to be, and then truly possibly have to come back one time to rezone that.
Can I ask one question on that about the rezoning?
Hold on 1 second. My goal in that would be to us address this area as a board. I don't want to be the one making all the decisions on it, but I need everybody's input. Let's look at Hodgeville, look at what we've got going in, and go ahead and make these changes for the comprehensive plan to fit the use in between that time. He can go ahead and proceed. The time he wants to come back, we'll have the plan in place, you know. We'll have to back ourselves.
Now, in a perfect world, and this is, I know I talked to Travis about this, a lot of our, probably most other jurisdictions, they have a method where this could have been addressed through this one meeting by having, where you could have applied for a text amendment at the same time and asking us to amend the ordinance to make it an allowed use in B2. And we could have, but we don't have that mechanism in place. That's not your fault. So here we are.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I think the issue here is that we cannot conditionally create a conditional use under B1 or B2 for this because mini storage is a prohibited use under both of those categories, but not B3.
And it should not be.
And it shouldn't be. And so, to Commissioner,
Mention it a bit better.
yeah,
And that's,
to Commissioner Keefer's point is that we probably, what we're trying to do is to remove that prohibition and amend the ordinance to maybe make it conditional in B1 and by right in B2 or something to that effect. But that's something that we can't get to you before next meeting. And so I think what our goal here with the B3 conditional is that just a way to move the process forward until we can remove that prohibition, and then if the applicant wants to then reapply to either downzone the property to B2 or B1 with no conditions, because by that time the mini storage would be a permitted use or conditional use, then they could do that. But that's the only reason so you would have that option of doing that so long as the board approved the amendment of the
Chairman, you
ordinance.
have a question. Before you do, let me clarify what I'm hearing. So if we were to do a first reading tonight, approving the B3 with the conditional use of mini storage and subdividing like we talked about, okay? Say the second reading for the next meeting, goes back to my question I had for you originally, is that if we had that approved to have a conditional use under B1 and B2, could we not, since we've already had the public hearing for all three, could we not go ahead and downgrade to a B2?
At the next meeting.
At the next meeting?
Yeah, so what you would do is B3, conditional use for mini warehousing only. You're going to restrict other uses if that's what you decide to do. And then at the second, you have the second reading at the second meeting. But also here, you can conditional use B3, and that will include all permitted uses in B1 and B2. So now if they wanted to proceed for a conditional use under 1 and 2, they're going to have to come back to you. But if you give them B3 conditional mini storage use and all permitted uses in 1 and 2, that's going to allow them more flexibility if their plans change.
And if I may, but if at the next meeting, prior to, let's say prior to old business and doing this, we were to amend the B2 and B1 zoning to remove the prohibited use of mini storage and make it conditional in B1 and a permitted use in B2, then when they came up at the meeting, they could then approve it at the lesser zoning of B2 unconditionally. I know that sounds complicated, but no matter what, we're going to have to be doing this in two meetings, and that would.
And I hear you, but I realize what Lee just said.
Okay.
If I think
But
about
if
it,
he's got B3 with the conditions that Teresa outlined, he could go ahead and go to work.
That's right.
I don't need to come back until we get this.
So he would, because we're going to put a condition on it, and so therefore,
It makes the second
Well,
reading.
let's
that second reading can't be at the same meeting.
let's outline, I'm gonna outline what I think I heard you say, I can't be attorney, and I like that because it's something we've done, and it's just one time, because we're trying to clean this up so we don't do this every time, so we don't micromanage. But if I heard you right, we could approve the B3 with the conditional use of mini storage only, and the allowable uses of B1 and 2. That could be what we approve tonight. We're restricting no B3 uses except for the conditional use, and the allowable uses of B1 and 2, and then we're done. We've communicated clearly with
That
them.
makes everything else.
You don't have to come back, you can do B1 or
I like
B2.
that.
I like that, and then we get it cleaned up, so in the future, we don't have to do that. We have one zone.
Can I express why I don't like that? I'm not saying I wouldn't support it, but why I don't like it. Say he decides to sell 3 acres of that property, and he's got a buyer, and he looks, I'm zone B3.
It's recorded court, not ordinance.
I know, but it's
But that's what we're
not
trying
that
to stop,
easy.
is somebody coming in.
It's not that easy to look at B3, go into the zoning ordinance appendix C.
I can do this and go for it.
I know, it just creates confusion.
I hear you, we're
For the
going to
think about it.
We want to simplify is what we're looking for.
And that's what I'm trying to get to.
But what he said, once he puts the warehouse under B3 conditional, they can't put nothing else B3 on there. The only thing they can put on there is B1 or
But that's the
Well,
motion.
they take care of it.
I would encourage you.
It does, no, I never, what they're saying absolutely will do that. it could just create confusion for an individual down the road that looks at the parcel and sees that it's on B3.
If you sell some property with due diligence, you need to share that.
Well, that's what I was gonna- yeah.
That's all ordinance requires that, so I agree.
And it is, but
You
it's
said
just not.
that's best protection. Best protection is, let's clean this up, clean down, and whatever. But you gotta move,
Next
I
person.
hope we'll move forward with this,
I don't want to get
constituent right
limited to one parcel.
and allow them to do
If that's
this.
the case, I'm gonna get
So,
surveyed.
tell you what, we need to propose a motion. If it denies for lack of a motion, that's fine, and we'll take another motion. I'm gonna propose a motion to approve the B3 with the conditional use of mini storage of B3 only, and the allowed uses of B1 and B2, with the condition that they subdivide the 15 acres from the other acreage before this zoning takes place. Did I miss a condition, Teresa, because you had 3?
It was just those two.
Just those 2?
The only thing I would add is that under the general provisions of the ordinance, the applicant needs to be given the option to withdraw or accept the condition.
Right, let me see if I get a motion for this, if I get a second before we vote, we'll discussion, and we'll see if he'll accept it.
But,
And then let me see if we have something to discuss, but we can always change the motion.
okay,
So I have a motion, do I have a second? Who's discussing, do I have a second? We can always deny for lack of.
Second.
All right, have a second, all right. Before we vote, you want to make some comments, and I want to ask if you.
I want it not limited to one plat because I may do 2. All right, the reason for that is I'll take the 5 acres out as B3, mini storage only, and then the 10 acres that I'm gonna leave in the field. In other words, I don't want to legally be bound myself to one plat, and I can put the 10 acres in the CUVA until I sell it.
I think you can legally subdivide the 15 acres.
You know,
It's just that the zoning
You can further
restrictions
subdivide
would be
that
applicable
within
to both.
the regulations.
Okay, that's fine, I just wanted to make sure, but,
Change this.
You can, you can subdivide it further, but the zoning restrictions.
and then when I sell it, they'll have B2 or B1 if I sell it, or I personally want, I want to develop myself, but you know, that's here down the road.
It'll carry the same zoning conditions.
Okay.
Those parcels.
What we just
Yeah.
approved, we will approve that they approve it, we'll follow that. 2 tracks or 3 parcels, whatever you do, okay?
Why would I do that?
acres, one plat.
15 acres, one plat, but what I'm saying is I want to make sure that I can reserve the right, I'm going to take 5 acres and then 10 acres.
Yes, you can,
I
but
mean, I don't see any reason
understand
why
that
I
the
don't.
zoning would be identical.
Yes, it's fine, it's just, it's tax
B3 with
purposes,
those
trust me.
conditions. Okay.
Both of those will be.
You pay tax on use, not on,
Both of those parcels, so you understand, would be, and Teresa, both those parcels, if you subdivide 10 and 5, will be B3, with the only conditional use that you can have is mini storage under B3, and any allowed B1 and B2 would follow both parcels.
that's fine.
That's what it would be.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And we can work on cleaning this up and won't slow
That's my
down.
question. We definitely don't want to go through this every time.
And we won't, because we're gonna try and clean up the.
I'd like to do 2
This is
things.
the second
Number one
time
is a
y'all went through it.
comprehensive review of this entire thing. And I'm serious, I'd really like to look at some kind of a process where, where someone can request a text amendment and we can catch this going through the process and change the ordinance to probably what it should be, because the public are going to find things wrong with our ordinance way before we do. And it would be a way for you or engineer, anybody to petition us to change it, and it may make very good sense, you know?
Well, let's ask our staff to look at what's the legal requirements to be able to do text amendments in the future, but that's going to be a different subject.
And I don't think there's anything preventing anyone from saying, hey, I want to do this on the property. It does not list this use as a conditional use or permitted use, because we're not going to put every single use that's out there in the text. And if a situation comes up where we need some clarification on that, we can do it simultaneously as a staff recommended text change and a rezone. But I'll talk to Lee about it to see if there's anything legally preventing us from doing that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Do you need to be restated, or Stephanie, you got it now?
I got it.
Okay.
Did they accept it?
All right, yeah, let me ask you,
Y'all are good with that?
We're fine with
accept
that.
those conditions?
Yeah, I would have never put it under B3 and this is the prohibited under B1 and B2 currently.
So you understand the motion, you accept the
Yes.
conditions of that motion? So let the record note that the applicant has agreed to accept the conditions of the motion that's been made and seconded. So if there's no further discussion, I entertain a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
All opposed, no. And it carries.
Thank you.
Now, no motion is right? Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd. All four in favor, okay. And we will reserve the second reading till the next meeting. Mr. Zebra, just so you know, the second reading will be the next meeting because we have conditions. So if nothing changes, then we'll have a second. 17th, second reading.
5 o'clock on the 17th.
Yeah, it should be a formality, just have a second reading. We can't do it the same night because we had conditions.
Understand.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to that effect, please? Can I get a motion to that effect?
What?
To table.
To postpone it to the next meeting?
Second reading?
Yes, sir.
I thought it was understood if you didn't make conditions.
I mean, it's in
I remember
our,
taking a motion.
we've always done it, but it's your decision to,
But we changed what we were voting on.
yes.
I would say because it's on the agenda, let's go ahead and take
All right,
it.
do I have a motion to table second reading to the next meeting?
Make a motion to table the second reading.
Second.
I don't understand why we're doing this.
I don't either.
We've never
I thought it
done
was an automatic thing.
You
I
always
recall that we've done it.
We haven't changed
do it
anything.
every time.
We haven't changed anything. I mean, we changed the,
We added
You
what was
added
the vote on
another,
B3?
you added another condition beyond
You did it
the
on
staff.
condition.
Oh, we definitely can't vote on the second one.
Well, let me say this.
I don't agree with
I
that.
know
We
in the
can't.
past, when we've added conditions, we've often said we cannot do the second reading that night. So we just don't take action on the second reading, just to show there's no action. I don't recall ever asking for a motion to have the second reading done on the next meeting.
You have, but however you all want to do it.
I think we've done it both ways, quite honestly. We have done it both ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't remember doing
I
this.
don't recall making a
You
motion.
don't have to, you don't have to, it's your decision.
I recommend no action on second readings. We had conditional changes and we legally cannot approve it. So I'm gonna note there's no action and the board issued that. Attorney, you have any issues?
Then this is already the second reading.
No action.
We have a second reading, a second on the second reading.
Yep. So second reading will be on the next meeting. Let's go to the public hearing number 7. Reading right along. That's a table, that's right. And number 8's been tabled, right?
Yes.
So we're going to new business. New business. We got through that pretty good. Item number 1, contract consideration to approve fiscal year 2021 Postal Regional Commission contract amendment 2021 1-08.
Mr. Chairman, the existing contract we have with the CRC, we're asking to amend it. This takes into account things like CARES Act funding, supplemental funding, changes in state funding, and so the contract amendment for the overall budget increases it by $75,765. Staff is recommending alternative 1, which is approve the amended contract 2020-2021.
Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is that Mr. Loper that made the motion? Yes. There's Mr. Loper, second Mr. Deloche to approve. That's alternative 1. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 2, consideration to approve a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 budget.
Yes, I know we were trying to wrap up the final amendments at the last meeting for 2021 budget, but there are some requirements that we have to do. In this case, it mostly has to do with the senior center. And this...
This is just approving the budget for the item we just did, right?
What's that?
And this is just approving the adjustment for the item we just approved? I think it's all it is, making provision.
Yeah, it looks like, well, yeah, I think you're right on that, since they were actually the ones who were providing the service.
We're just making a motion to allow the funding for that, what you just approved. So we have a motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd, approve alternative 1. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. Any carries. Grant, consideration to approve to accept a grant award from the Georgia Governor's Office of Highway Safety Grant Program.
Oh, let's see. Sorry, Christie is out. This
There's
is,
no cost to us.
yeah, this is no cost to us, and this
Any
is,
discussion, I'm not telling you, motion to approve alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, number two, second by Mr. Keeper.
I read this here.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Number four, final deed plat, consideration to approve the final plat and warranty deed to accept the infrastructure in Creek Side Subdivision Phase 1 located off of Georgia Highway 30, map number 436, parcel number 46 and 47.
So this one, Village Park Homes LLC, under contractors have built roads, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure for Phase 1. There are 79 lots, and in order to begin selling those lots and constructing homes, they need a final plat to be approved. And the roads, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure to be accepted by the Board of Commissioners. EOM reviewed the plat, and they conducted a final inspection and have recommended approval. Staff reviewed the final plat checklist, and all documents are in order and consistent with everything, the zoning plans and plats approved previously. The county engineer reviewed the bond recommendation and approved the subdivision bond and the infrastructure bond, both of which are 10% of the total cost of constructing the water, sewer, drainage, and paving in Phase 1. The county attorney reviewed and approved the warranty deed. Staff recommends alternative one.
Questions or discussion? Motion for alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Roper for alternative one. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Carries. Item number five, consideration to approve a professional service contract with Pittman Engineering for the Thames Storm Water Utilities Program.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in this year's budget, we budgeted to do a study with regards to a stormwater utility. We did an RFP for the study, got our results back, and after reviewing the full study, which included not simply the final price, but the scope of the project and the process, staff is recommending that we choose Pittman Engineering for the contract price of $38,500. Staff is recommending alternative one.
Yeah, I'd recommend the board look at alternative two. The only 5 points difference in the two. I'm not sure why we
$8,000.
spend that $8,000 for.
$9,000 in the two of them,
Yeah.
between Pittman
I
and.
mean, is there a reason other than that?
No, and I think it just really had to do with the experience on it and the study. And I spoke with Charlie about this, and you know, because of the price difference. You know, it was a tough one for us to determine, but I think the level of comfort we just had reading the proposal by Pittman over GWS, but we think they're both qualified. That's why we put as an alternative one a backup of which is GWES.
The overall scoring was only 5 points difference, 90-95, so I'll entertain a motion to leave alternative one or alternative two.
Make a motion to approve alternative two.
Motion by Mr. Burdette to approve alternative two. Do I have a second?
And alternative two is not Pittman.
No, it's GWES.
WES.
It's a little bit.
$9,000 difference.
$9,000 difference.
But I'll wait until, I want to make sure.
They scored 5 points difference in the Pittman.
I'll second, so I can ask my question.
Okay, you have a second, so we have discussion. Okay.
We're fine doing that, even though the scoring system, from a legal standpoint, we went through a scoring system. Are we okay picking? I just want to make sure of that.
You just better be darn sure you've got reasons to do it and articulate it on the record. Yeah.
That's my only concern.
Well, my feeling was that there wasn't enough difference. If you had a 80 and a 95, that might be a difference, but 195, that would be the same. And that's why, how do you get the more experience if everything else is qualified? How do these, I think, Mr. Burdette asked that question one time, how do we allow people to get the experience if they always score a few points less because they don't have?
Yeah.
We're saving the county for those $9,000, it's almost 25% difference in.
Is there a further scoring where there was ultimately?
So we did,
I'm just trying to figure out the score.
so we did the scoring based on project approach, experience, team, and the actual bid dollar amount.
Yeah.
And so obviously GWS came in the highest when it came to the bid amount. And really, project approach was somewhat similar between Pittman and GWES. Really, the difference came in the team. They provided the information about the team that they were providing for this and the experience. And so, what if the commission feels more comfortable that the weight of the score and giving and opening up our process to give more providers experience in the county, because it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario where you get a higher score if you have more experience, but you can't win if you don't have experience. So if that's one of the goals of the board, then that.
And it's not that they don't have experience in the field, this is they don't have experience with the county. And at some point they have to get some.
Well, it was both. One of them has experience, I think, if I recall this, Pittman had experience in these feasibility studies and on a master plan. And they had more experience on the feasibility study portion of it, where GWES, I believe, had the experience on the master plan, but it's still valid experience for creating a feasibility study.
Here tonight, I want to give you an opportunity to speak if you'd like.
Yeah, I just want to ask one question while it's coming up. I'm just trying to, you've got the price and you've got the score, but how do they combine to give basically a net score? Does that make sense?
Yeah, if you look
I'm not
at
seeing.
You got a score sheet here.
yeah, you got a score sheet there, and so if we limit it to just GWES and Pittman on the bid, on the price, Pittman scored 15, GWES scored 20, because GWES had a lower price, so they scored higher. On the project team, Pittman scored 20, GWES scored 15, and then on experience, Pittman 30, GWES was 25. Approach, they both scored 30. So that's where you created the 5-point difference, right? The low bid canceled out, let's say it canceled out the team, but then the experience came in to give Pittman the edge.
What do they look at when you're looking at team?
When the bid proposals, and I don't have them with me, that's one of the things that they provide in there. It's the information of their employees, their staff, and their level of experience. So then you just, we do that obviously because we let them know that that's one of the things that they're going to get scored on.
I mean, I see the scoring, that's where the total points come in.
Yes.
Okay, so I see it now.
Under bid.
The score, the bid price was,
The 20
okay, the
points.
bid price was used to create that score.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry. I was missing that.
I've got a good price.
Yep, I was missing that link.
For me, I mean, if I was hiring somebody to do some engineering for me, and it was my personal stuff. As long as they didn't have a red flag in those areas, they had experience in those areas, I will be trying to save my household money. I think it's our civic duty to do the same thing with the county's money. Unless we've got a red flag that says, hey, you don't need to hire this guy because he doesn't have experience in that area, then I can see doing that. But if I can save taxpayers 25% on this, and there's no reason to deny them this, if they're capable of doing the work, I would give them a shot. I know I wouldn't have heartbeat in my house. Why would I do that here?
I know the Pittman firm is here. Would you like to speak on, since they did take time, the others, is any other engineers here tonight that's make proposals? So I think he deserves the right to at least speak up for his.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. My name is Ray Pittman. I live in Richmond Hill. Been doing stormwater for 35 plus years. Am I familiar with stormwater utilities? Absolutely. Am I also familiar with the pitfalls of stormwater utilities? And the answer to that is yes as well. And understanding the pitfalls is one of the greatest advances and advantages to Pittman Engineering. For example, what we've included in the scope, and the scope is a big component of the scoring as well. For our particular scope, for example, we're going to create a utility, just like a water utility, just like your sewer utility, just like your roadways itself. And understanding and presenting to the people themselves that this is a utility that you're providing a service for. It's not a tax, it's a utility. You're providing a service. It's just like turning on your electricity. So one of the things that we've done and that we know of, people with homes in the community, they're going to feel like, are you treating me fairly? So what we've incorporated into our particular scope of work is that a person who has a small home versus a medium-sized home versus a very large home, should there be a difference in the rate structure and the study mechanism for each one of those different categories? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So that everybody's treated fairly and equally. Another component of this as well is industries. There's a number of stormwater utilities out there that people are complaining about because a business that has 45,000 square feet is paying the exact same thing for a stormwater utility as a person in a 1,500 square foot home. Is that fair? So what we built into it is going into your GIS system, and we've got folks that will go in and digitize 1,000 parcels and actually identify what is the average square footage for small houses, for medium houses, for large, and we're doing that same thing for commercial as well. So we're building in that component so that everybody's treated fairly in this right here. In what was presented was create a scope. And a lot of people know that, okay, I'm gonna create a scope and I'm gonna do a study, and my study is gonna say, I have one structure for residential and I have one structure for a utility. And then that does a disservice to our county and to the citizens themselves. And so we built all of that in there. So I think that because of our expertise in storm drainage, and have we done storm drainage? The answer is absolutely. We've done work for the city of Savannah. We've done work for Effingham County in the past. I was a principal before at TNH. So all of those features are built into this as well. So I think that when you come to us, you bring the full depth of understanding of what a true stormwater is. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
That's good comments. Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or discussion?
I wish Charlie was here to give us his opinion. There's a reason he chose this engineering firm. I don't know what it is though.
Can the staff that's here address whether the other scope is as broad as Mr. Pittman's
If you
scope?
want, we could table it and I can get Charlie to provide a more detailed report on it.
I'm probably, I can't help but go back to that we advertised, what the scope was, and I'm sure we advertised the scoring system, right?
We did.
That's what concerns me.
Right, and so, and scope so much as a method, but approach, I think, is probably the thing that we looked at to make sure. But then again, on approach, everybody was tied.
That's subjective too.
I don't disagree, but
You know, we're not.
but we did it. But we did it.
Well, you know, my interest in looking at the second one was because of the lower price, but I can tell you, I've known Mr. Pittman for a while. I know he's a quality engineer and has done good work for other folks that I've worked with, so I know he knows what he's doing. I had the same interest you had as
Yeah,
I was trying to say that,
at all.
but the issue that I heard we shared was that perhaps their scope might be a little even broader than what we said for residential utilities.
But it's, I guess the big question is, are you providing $9,000 more dollars of value? And are you doing something to differentiate you from the other guys? And are the other guys not going to do the job as well as Pittman would be? How do we answer?
Would you like for Charlie to comment on that?
That would be great. You know, if that's the difference, if they're going to do a better job for our county, they're adding $9,000 worth of value to that to do the job, I'm all for it. You know, then we're adding value to our taxpayers and our citizens.
Theoretically, that's what the scoring system.
That's what it should be.
That's what the school
Yeah.
should be doing.
Charlie's not going to say that. And maybe that is, and maybe there's some areas we're not.
Why don't we table it and he can talk to Charlie and he can give us an update, what he thinks about it, why we need to pay the $9,000 extra.
I'm all for quality work, but I'm also for saving money. I'm going to say things. You know,
If we're going to table, we have a motion and a second before we need to withdraw the motion in a second. If we're going to table, before we take action on the motion, one or the other, just a matter of order. You want to withdraw the motion?
so they do.
We have a motion and a second, we've got to take action on. We can either withdraw it, or we can vote it down and consider another motion.
Let me withdraw that then.
I think a motion to table has a priority.
I don't know what to say at this point.
It's a superior motion, so that even if you have the first and the second, you can still table it.
He can rescind, he got to rescind his motion.
I'll accept that, we have a motion to table.
Make a motion to table.
What's that?
No, sorry, I'm just mumbling.
Motion by Mr. Burdette to table.
second the motion.
Getting that motion. Okay. And second by Mr. Deloach to table until the 11/17, is that the date?
Yes, sir.
And based on the legal expertise of our county manager, that takes precedent on the motion we've made. So all in favor of motion to table, say aye. All opposed, no.
No.
No? Thank you, Mr. Cooper, voted no. And so it carries, we'll take this to November 17th, and we'll get Charlie to answer that question. Is that 5 points generating, he believes?
It may be something that nobody's even looking at. We just don't have that.
Sorry to make you wait a couple of weeks, but we'll have a better decision in 2 weeks. Okay.
Whoever, just so we know, I'm kind of a septic of the stormwater utility, so I look forward to whoever does it.
Yep.
Convince me
Absolutely.
otherwise.
All right, next is insurance consideration to approve group insurance renewal changes for the calendar year 2021.
Is there any way we could table this to maybe the next week? I'd like to have a workshop. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we got to consider here. Partially self-insured, I mean, what,
We have an expert here. This is Frank Garrison. He is our insurance rep from USI. He can explain anything you have questions about.
well, there's a lot of questions that probably be in here, you know? But anyway, and that's what I wanted. We should have had it before we started this meeting, because there's a lot in here.
Well, let's go over it and have a little discussion, and if we need to table it in the end, that's what the board wants to do, we can do it.
Well-
I did review it in detail, and I'm pretty familiar with it myself.
And I didn't know he was here, but anyway, one of the things, we do away with one person on one thing, but then we hire them back on another one, you know?
No, sir.
Let's wait, we can make a
Well, this is the
presentation.
process.
So anyway, you got 3 or 4 different insurance companies.
Yes, sir.
It's hard to follow all of them, because some of them we taking something from and giving to somebody else, and we turn around and give them something else. There's a lot of moving parts in this thing.
It's a lot of moving parts, but I think that that between myself and Frank and Mr. Callanan, we can pretty much answer any questions you have
Well, let's do this, once you make your presentation.
yes, sir.
And then we can see what discussion, questions we have from the board, and then if they felt we need to table, we can table as Mr. Lopez.
Okay. Can I say one thing about the tabling, though? These bids that we have and the information that we have are all time sensitive. So today is the deadline for I'm sure, well, I would hope that some of the vendors would agree to extend it to the 17th, but I'm not sure that that would be an option.
We'll make a
We should
presentation.
have started a little early on this thing, because there's a lot of stuff in here. And I don't have any problem with any of it. I'm just talking about there's a bunch of moving parts in this thing, and it's sort of hard to understand all of it.
Okay.
But I don't have a problem overall, but the biggest thing is being self-insured. But I'll ask the questions, go ahead and do your thing, and I'll ask the
Yeah, and I'm correct, and I think if we break this down and do the number one last, just so we can get the other items that I think are probably don't require as much change as the medical insurance, like the dental and vision, short-term disability, COBRA, and flex spending.
Right.
That if we go over those first and then spend the most amount of time on the partially self-funded medical insurance.
Or you recommend we go to 2, 3, 4, and 5, then make a motion on those, and then come back to number 1, make a motion?
Well, I mean, we could, let's explain those 2, 3, 4, and 5 first.
Okay.
And if there are no questions with those, we can just spend the amount of time on the partially
If you're going
self-funded.
to do that, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. Vicki Dunn, HR Director. As you know, every year we have to renew, or don't have to renew all of our insurances, but our insurances come up for renewal. This year, we had some issues with a couple of our providers, so we did ask USI to go out for bids. On our dental and vision insurance, we currently have MetLife, and they have agreed to no change in our premiums nor in our plan design, so it would be the same program for 2021 that we have now. On our short-term disability, long-term disability, and basic life insurance. This one, we did have some severe issues with our provider. These 3 benefits are something that the county pays for the employee, so this is all coming out of our pocket. The customer service for the disability portion of this coverage was terrible. We went out and asked USI to go out for bids on the disability and the life insurance. They did. They got a bid from Mutual of Omaha. There were several bids, and then the package that I gave y'all last week, it showed all of the bids that came in. And I can give that to you again for referral if you would like. But the Mutual of Omaha came in not only with the same plans that we have now, but it's going to also be reduced costs to the county. Our COBRA administration, right now we have Infinisource or iSolve that handles our COBRA administration and our flex spending plan. The COBRA administration is, of course, the coverage that the employees can elect once they leave the county employment. Currently, it's being administered, like I said, by Infinisource. Should we choose to go with the partially self-insured, that's one of the benefits that they would provide for us. Not having to pay for the COBRA administration that we have now would save about $2,100 a year. And then on our flex spending administration, we're requesting that staff recommends renewing the contract with the flex benefit company. We're having no issues with them, great customer service.
Any questions or discussions about items 2, 3, 4, and 5 from Vicki?
The one I was talking about, you changing them around. On number 4, it says staff recommends canceling the current contract with Effingham, I guess.
Yes, sir.
And then number 5, you gave them something back. So that's, you know.
Right. That's because, Mr. Leopard, the COBRA administration is part of the proposal that we have as a partially self-funded. And so if we go with the partially self-funded, we will no longer need to contract with Infinisource for that particular breakout. We have a contract with Infinisource for COBRA and for Flex.
Okay.
So if you choose to go partially self-funded, we would no longer have to pay that extra $2,100. I know it's not a lot a year, but that's still saving money. So that's where that one comes in. Does that make sense?
I just see where we doing away with the contract with them for one thing, but we pick it up somewhere else. So
No, sir. We're just trying to save a little money. Right.
If they can't do it on here, why are they doing it somewhere else? You know?
Okay.
Ms. Vicki, I'm sure this is probably in the packet, but have we hammered down a savings by going self-funded in some of these areas?
Actually, we did, and in some of the information, they gave us as a partially self-funded, they gave us our worst case scenario, our best case scenario, and what they expect. If we go self-funded again for next year, we're looking at 4.8 for there was a 10% increase from this year to next year for Blue Cross Blue Shield if we stayed with them. If we go partially self-insured, the worst case would be 5.2, which is, of course, is more, but the projected savings or the projected costs are expected to be 4.9.
Let me give you the savings. That's the total premium cost. I looked at this and see if this helps with what you just said, make sure I'm saying it right. If you went to self-funded,
Partially.
the maximum out-of-pocket we could possibly pay if all of us got cancer or bomb drop and they all got sick because of the stopgap insurance, the maximum we would pay, according to the doctor's outlook that you gave us, a risk is $637,000. Okay, that's the max. It could cost us.
That's worst case scenario.
But we have a worst case scenario. That's the difference in those premiums she's giving you.
Yes, sir.
The best case scenario, pretty close, would be we could save $313,000 if we with portion self-funded.
Partially self-funded, yes, sir.
And if we miss that by 313, we've still kept our costs at the same. Whereas the lowest bidder, who is somebody that's giving us like a 5% because they want our business, but you know what's going to happen next year? You're going to end up paying 12 to 15% of the year, they're going to jack it back up.
Yes, sir.
So that 5% bidder would still cost us another $237,000. The next guy's like $500,000 or $600,000 more. So the worst case scenario is about what it would cost us to stay with our current carrier.
Right.
So we have a chance to save $300,000. And from what I saw, we do not lose any benefits. We have the same benefits, same great health care, and we get to control our wellness plan.
Yes, sir.
There's things we can do to improve the ability to make our savings greater by controlling our wellness plan. We don't control it, it's controlled by an insurance company. So for those reasons, if I said that right, I would, and I talked to Tim about it, make sure he was on board as well.
Oh, yes.
I would recommend the board to seriously consider this. And I think it puts us in a better position in the future. If you did go back to insurance, they know that we have the ability to keep our premiums low, provide a great service, we'll get better prices in the future.
One of the projections that USI provided us with also that said over a 5-year period, if we go partially self-insured, we can expect to save between $700,000 and $750,000 over that 5-year period. Where you're looking at, if we go fully insured again, there's no telling what our cost would jump to at
You're
that
probably
point.
going to average going up about $500,000 a year.
At least.
Every year. So instead of saving $750,000 over 5 years, you're going to spend $22.5 million over.
Yes, I'm really excited. I know this sounds nerdy, but I'm really excited about this partially self-insured because we have so much more control over what we pay, how it's paid out. Right now, part of the vendors that we would need to contract with is Meritain. Meritain would become our third-party administrator. They would be the ones paying the claims. The claims would go to them, and then they would in turn come back and debit an account that we had set up for our medical claims.
And Tim's had some experience with this in his
Yes, sir.
previous.
Talking about that.
And he spoke very positively too. I don't know if you'll make comments there or not.
And I think it's a combination of two things. Yes, it's you're talking about a cost savings for the county, but when you talk about stuff like better healthcare results, right now, if we were to require or encourage, or however we want to do it, employees to get a blood work done every year, get their biometrics done every year, we could do that and it would benefit them, but we won't necessarily see any savings as a result of it. With this, if we were to require it, we know that everything that we catch, all the coaching that we provide these employees is going to provide, A, it's going to improve their health outcomes, and B, it's a dollar saved for us by catching something early. When things get paid out of an insurance pool, you may have these programs in place, but they're not necessarily going to benefit you financially. So then in the second year, we could look at, and we could do it in the first year, but we didn't want to do too many changes in the first year. we can look at structuring the plan that is best suited for our employees, while under a fully insured plan, you really have a limited options on the structure of your plan. And when I say structure of the plan, what's included, what's not included, and we can reward good behavior and not reward bad behavior type of thing. So those are the things that I think are the benefit from it. It's not just simply the cost, and the cost, we've been looking at double-digit increases since, I'm sure, the last...
2017, yeah.
For the last 10 or 12
sure.
years. We can actually have some level of control on those increases, and then, folks, we can encourage healthier activity, the employee benefits, and we benefit financially.
So this means you can't go anywhere, since we're doing this, because you have the experience in the self-insured world.
We
Well,
are.
there's one way to ensure that I won't go anywhere, but we can just, no, just kidding. I do recommend this, and I do have a good amount of experience with it.
And two of us in the HR department do as well, so. Yes, sir. Then, of course, we have USI, and they are just, I can't say enough good things about them as far as their support. And one other little bit of information I'd like to provide about the partially self-funded is that now when you have a claim dispute or something like that, everything is handled off at Anthem. Becoming partially self-insured, it comes home to us. So if there's an issue with a claim, it's going to come to us. We're going to be able to determine, should it have been paid differently? How should it have been paid, and things like that. And then to add on to what Mr. Callanan said, as far as the plan structure, if you go fully insured, you're subject to what they have. You can't make, if you can make some changes, it's usually going to cost you more money. But in this way, we can do anything we want to do. Make any changes we want to make.
Would this move kind of test the waters to become fully self-insured in the future? Is this?
I mean, non-partially?
Right.
No, I don't think I would ever recommend
Going back.
removing that protection at the top.
Right.
Kind of get the best of both worlds, I guess.
Right.
Because you're going to get a couple of $3 million claims.
Vicki, when y'all started this, did y'all go back a couple of years or 3 years and see what we paid and compare all this stuff to it?
Yes, sir, that's part of what USI does for us. They go back and do a complete review of our history with our insurance companies, our claims that we've paid. Generally, each month we pay more in premiums than we pay in claims. That's pretty much the rule of thumb, basically. Very rarely will we ever have enough claims or have claims that will be as much as what we pay in premiums.
Well, we paid.
Each month.
That's the way insurance makes money.
Absolutely.
If the insurance is not getting more
We
premiums.
remember this for a couple of years, and we were going broke, we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So we'd still have claims, but we couldn't pay them. Who would take care of those claims?
Well,
that was on the?
All right, you have to remember now, with this comes a what's called a stop-loss policy.
You won't get to that point.
Correct.
Right.
We have an insurance policy that covers the higher end.
And I will say, to be financially, responsible, that, and I had recommended, I spoke to USI about it to ask them if this is what some of their customers do, and they said, yes, some of them do this, where essentially you take your first few years of savings, and it's essentially like kind of funding your deductible, right? So you prepare yourself, in case you have a bad year. And then, like I said, we know what our maximum is any given year that we're going to have to pay, but if we take those years of savings that we have and basically, and create almost like a savings account for that.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But if you have 2 or 3 good years, I understand that, because you can build up your money from that. But say a year and a half, it falls, you don't have all this money saved up.
But that's the stop-loss policy, Mr. Loper, ensures that we only pay up to $125,000 towards any medical claim. That's all we're responsible for. And after that, the stop loss policy kicks in and pays the rest of it.
And that's where I'm assuming you got the 637,000, that if all the stop loss, if we hit the maximum stop loss, that's to your question, can we safely say we'll have $637,000 in the worst case scenario? We'll have that in the worst case scenario.
Okay.
But we have the potential, we have to come up with $1 million.
But it's not going to get out of hand where it goes beyond the stop loss.
Right, 637 is the out of hand as it can get. But we have a chance to save 300,000.
Are we able to earn interest on that money that we put aside?
I guess that would depend on what kind of account we set up for that money to go
we
into.
do. We put it in the, I think it's the ACCG account, if I recall that, and it's actually been performing very well for us, so, with the remainder of our fund balance, so.
Are we factoring that in the savings?
If we can make a go of this thing, I don't have no problems with it, but I just didn't. I just had some questions there, how we come about this and what we're gonna do and.
We actually looked at this proposal for this year. We looked at it last year for this year. Our claims loss last year was terrible. And so there was no way we could get a stop loss policy coverage, actually is what happened. So we had no choice but to go with fully insured again for this year. Luckily, we've been in a better position this year and we were able to get several offers. I mean, there are several vendors that bid on our proposal. So we're in really, Frank called me and said he's never had a, what'd you say, a conundrum?
Yeah, exactly.
Like this, because we got good information from most of the people that proposed their bids for us.
Here's what I look at, if you're gonna go with our current vendor, you're gonna spend about $500,000 more.
Yes, sir.
If we change to what you're recommending and what Tim's recommending, the maximum cost more will be $637. You're gonna talk about another $137,000 roughly to try the partial self-insured, but an opportunity to save $300 plus a year. And if we only save $150 a year for 3 years or 4 years or $200,000, if we don't hit the 300, we're still gonna be better off. So that's why I encourage the board to consider this.
And the control that we'll have is so much greater, so much
There's a lot
more.
of other reasons too.
Yes, sir.
That number reason right there. If you stay with the current premium, you're gonna spend over $500,000.
Yes, sir.
The current provider.
Yes,
For a
sir.
little bit more, just a little bit of risk, another $130,000, you can chance to save $330,000.
And I would be.
I know we got a bunch of old employees like me too.
Me too.
We take that into consideration.
Actually, we're working on something, I've been talking to my Medicare guy, and I talked to Vicki, we're gonna come back with a proposal, I think it's gonna save us at least $50,000 or $60,000 on insurance, and give you and me better insurance, because we're 65 and over.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So we're looking on that, and I appreciate Vicki looking at that. I got with her one day when the guy was talking, and I thought, man, that sounds good, let's see if our county has that, they don't have it. And we're looking at an opportunity for our 65 and over, where we can provide even better care at less cost for our county and us. So we'll come back in maybe, 30 days or so, we will be
Yes, sir.
prepared to share that with you.
Normally, I'd be leery of doing that in the middle of a pandemic. But if you got people bidding like that on stop loss policies, the insurance has confidence that we're not going to be in bad shape, with the pandemic.
And stop loss is what's going to keep our loss from being.
They wouldn't be offering us those type of policies.
That's our protection.
Pandemic in that hand.
Is there anything else you want to add, Frank, or anything else that you missed?
No, I mean, I think from a high level, everyone hit on it, so. I mean,
But the one point, what Frank told me was that in his career, he's never had a customer go partially self-funded and then go back to fully insured. So that's a good stat.
And if I look at there, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
There are a lot of other opportunities for cost savings once we get into this, particularly on the pharmacy side, to add to the savings. So it just gives us the flexibility.
Can you come say that again? I'm sorry.
Sure, sorry. So, I'm Frank Garrison with USI Insurance, and I have broken glasses. No, but as we move through this, there are multiple different ways for cost savings, aside just from what we're looking at on the cost of the insurance, the stop loss and so forth, particularly on the pharmacy side. We can actually carve out a pharmacy benefit manager and do a public, more competitive bid That's one way. Typically, we see at least a 20% or so savings on the pharmaceutical side. So it just, to Vicky's point, it gives us a ton more flexibility to work and kind of move and shake and keep up with everybody else.
You know, one of the things that's changed is the CPA doing audits years ago. I saw some stuff in partially self-insured plans.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have all the wellness programs back then.
Exactly.
That's what I like about what we're doing now. We have an ability to really improve the wellness of our staff, ourselves, and relate that to premiums paid. There's just so much flexibility that wasn't done in the past. People just put self-insured because they saw, well, man, we're paying this premium, doing this claims, why don't we let the insurance make that money? We'll save the money. But they didn't do the other stuff that people are doing today, like Tim did in his program, that will really keep our costs going in the right direction. And it makes us, like I said, take good care of our staff
Right.
and ourselves.
So happy to answer any questions, and thank you guys for having me.
And I forgot what I was going to say now, but
I'm going to entertain a motion to approve alternative one, which would be to approve
the changes we just
1, 2,
discussed.
3, 4, and 5.
Yes, sir.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kiefer,
Second.
second by Mr. Deloach to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it's unanimous.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I
Thank you for
appreciate
your hard
that.
work, and that, you don't put this together in a few minutes.
I know what I was going to say now. The plans will not change at all. We don't have to raise the cost to the employees for their insurance for next year. So the cost, as far as what they're going to see, will be no difference. There's no change in the plan designs at all for this first year. And then after we get in the game and realize what we can do, then we can look at changes in 2022.
And you might not do that for a couple of years to build it.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
if we could pass that reserve back to our folks. then we
Yes,
do
sir.
that.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, David. You did good work.
Thank you.
Item number 7, an agreement consideration to approve a purchase agreement for a used fire tanker in the city of Pooler in the amount of $15,000.
Clint Hodges, Fire Chief. Right now, the fire department operates a fleet with 8 tankers, of 7 of which are pretty much identical to each other, and one of them is an 18-wheeler tanker, a 1984 model. This truck just recently went in for a PM, and they found, EOM found some additional repairs that were going to have to be made. And this vehicle right now is very limited in the amount of drivers because you have to go get your Class A driver's license and everything. So it's not quite as functional, and I really didn't want to commit the money to repairing it if we didn't absolutely have to. And the city of Pooler utilizes our fire training center, and they recently decommissioned tanker, which is, it's a 1993 model, but has recently been refurbished. And it's just part of their capital replacement plan. And due to our relationship, I spoke with a county manager, and they're willing to sell it basically for $15,000, which is below fair market value. So
What's a new tanker cost?
about
That's what
$375,000.
I was thinking. I mean, if it lasts 6 months, you pay for it, it's a year, you're blessed. If it lasts 3 or 4 years,
Well, the area it's going to serve is on the northern end around the Egypt and Shawnee area, and that call volume's not near what it is on the south end, so we expect this to last several years.
Yeah, I know you'll keep it maintained. That's ISO too, doesn't it?
Yes, sir, it does, and it's very similar to the other ones we have, so there will be no additional licensure requirements.
Any questions, discussion?
What do we do with the other tanker? We decommission that? Or?
The tank itself actually belongs to Georgia Forestry through a lease agreement. We'll send that back to them. The tractor we will surplus and send, I mean, if there's another need in the county or if there's not, we'll just send it to the auction.
Okay, any questions, discussion? Motion for alternative one?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second by Mr. Deloach. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Contract, consideration to approve a professional service contract with Coleman Company in Maxwell Reddick for on-call surveying service.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Actually, number 8 and number 9 are very similar in that this was a recommendation by our previous engineer that we bid out some of these services so that we have contractors that we can turn to, have negotiated rates rather than do them on a as-needed basis. And so this is something that whoever the future engineer will be able to take advantage of as well. Staff is recommending alternative 1.
Any questions or discussion? Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second. Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Burdette, for alternative 1. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it's unanimous. Contracts again, number 9, consideration to approve a professional service contract with Greenlight Architecture of Savannah, Roberts Engineering of St. Simon's for on-call CAD service.
And it's similar as the last one above. It's just this one's for CAD services, the other one's for survey.
And you split them up, I guess, architectural versus civil type, yeah.
Correct.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Loper to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it's unanimous. Carries. Item number 10, consideration to approve a service agreement with Motorola Solutions for the annual maintenance agreement for the 700/800 megahertz radio system and 911 consoles.
Chris Reed, IT Director. This agreement would be to continue our service and maintenance agreement on our 911 consoles for the radio consoles, along with the maintenance on the 3 tower sites. The other thing that was added in this one as compared to last year was the 3 new consoles that were added at the sheriff's dispatch, which added another $13,561 as above what it would have been just for 911 and the towers. But adding it into this contract saved us $4,985 versus having 2 contracts.
This is an annual contract?
Yes, sir. This is our,
Was it 150 last year? It says we add this to the original cost. Was no increase? Or?
it would have been $150,065.27 with
last year.
that is with the percentage of increase that Motorola was going to have on it this year.
What was it? You know what the increase was? The percentage?
It was, I believe, 3%. It was somewhere between 3 and 5% was their annual increase.
Any questions or discussions? There a motion for alternative 1?
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second by Mr. Deloach for alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Number 11, policy consideration to approve and publish section 2.23, open records request to human resources practice.
Vicki Dunn, HR Director. Yes, sir. This is a new policy that we're presenting. This is going to establish the procedures for all county departments and department heads to follow in regards to open records requests. We don't have set procedures in place at this time. It's generally noted that the open records request must go to the county clerk first, and then she determines who it should go to next for the action. And this is going to establish the actual procedures that will be followed by all department heads to make sure the open records are accounted for properly. Staff recommends alternative 1.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion Mr. Loper, second Mr. Deloach for alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries unanimously. Number 12, consideration to approve and publish section 2.21, critical workforce personnel to human resource standards and practice.
Yes, sir. This is also a new policy. This comes more in line with our EMA and fire rescue in the event of severe weather, emergencies, disasters, and things like that. This policy will go out and require department heads to have their personnel, their staff, fill out a form that will identify any special skills that they may have In the event of a disaster, that information will be forwarded to the EMA director and his staff. So in the event of a disaster, if we needed, say, electricians that there may be somebody that's an electrician, we could call in the people for their skills. So it's just identifying some outlying skills we may have out there and don't know anything about.
Sounds good. So the policy ensure we do that.
Yes, sir, and this, the policy was reviewed by our county attorney as well as the ACCG HR attorney. Staff recommends alternative 1.
Question or discussion? A motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Deloach to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries unanimously. Item number 13, last item on the new business. Discussion to authorize leave accrual based on the number of hours worked in a normal shift.
Yes, sir, this is just a discussion item. We will go forward on a policy revision if approved or if upon y'all's decision. Chief Hodges and one of his lieutenants came to talk with me about the amount of leave that's accrued by personnel. Everybody is on the same accrual system, regardless of what shift you work. One of the proposal that they made was that we look at the accrual basis. Right now, it's done strictly by your length of service as far as how many hours you earn each pay period. What their recommendation was possibly look at making it not only your length of service, but also the shift that you work. Our fire department personnel, EMS personnel work 24-hour shifts. So they're concerned that as far as earning enough leave, maybe not be so.
May not be equitable with the others.
Right.
You know, I read this and I looked at it, Vicki, and I encourage the board to let you move forward with some, numbers for us. We want it to be equitable.
Yes,
I
sir.
recognize there's a difference between our fire and EMS and the shifts they work.
Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about the cost.
Yes,
So
sir.
I think the board would want to look at, I would want to look at the cost of these additional personal leave hours or days that may be generated.
Right.
So forth.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think it'd be good to look at that and make sure that we are equitable with our fire and EMS.
Yes, sir.
Those are on 24-hour and 12-hour shifts. Those are 8-hour shifts.
We did go out, or Chief Hodges went out and got some proposals from cities and counties around us that do have different leave accrual rates based on your shift that you work. So we have that information in here. Also, one of the things that we are recommending is if we go forward with this, not only do we get some funds information for you, but it not be implemented until the beginning of next fiscal year.
I saw that, and for that reason, I think if we could have the detailed information on the cost and all.
Yes, sir.
For our January workshop now.
Yes, sir.
We could look at it then and then put it on agenda in February, March to approve it in time for Christie to consider the budget in 2021-22.
Yes, sir.
But let's get a discussion. I don't know if we need to do a lot of that to get some more information about it. Yeah. But I'm definitely, I think all of us want to be equitable with all our staff.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Do that for us and we'll make that part of that workshop.
Yes, sir, I will.
All right, that concludes the new business. I know we're all anxious to go home and see if we're going to have T-Splosh here a little bit and other things going on. So I'll go around real quickly and see if there's any manager report.
No, we are, just to give you a heads up, we are going to try and work on a date for a workshop or retreat based on availability, and Stephanie will see when and where we can do it.
Let me offer a suggestion, since we're looking at pushing it to January, let's look at the normal conference we did at CCG and see maybe we could go a couple days early and book it around that same, because we're probably already leaving that last weekend available. Maybe we could go up a day early or 2 days earlier and do it up there, but just a recommendation.
You're talking about Effingham.
Or
Effingham. Yeah, if they're doing it, I don't know if they're having it, I haven't seen anything yet.
They may not because of COVID, but if they are, usually we all kind of keep that date reserved. It might be easier to use it. If not, earlier in January, the better. Might be hard for a lot of commissions to take two days off, but we need this as quickly as possible. So, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Stephanie?
What I have, you have with you up there, you have your monthly report for EOM. You were emailed the report for the animal shelter for the month of October. Also, as a member on the hospital board of directors, I asked staff that they would put together some information for your viewing. The hospital is doing some good things over there, and I think that you all need to be made aware of what's going on. So there's some good information in that packet there on what's going on at Effingham Health System.
Yeah, we appreciate you being on that board, and I appreciate that staff and Frank Baker and the whole team. We are so blessed to have that hospital.
How often do you guys meet?
Monthly for the board of directors. There's a strategic planning meeting every month. There's a budget committee meeting every month. So pretty much every week, really, there's some type of meeting.
I know I still owe you one body.
Yes, you do, and Mr. Loeffler, you will as well. I'm glad you.
I asked, but the one person that had been willing to do it, they're out of my district.
Yeah. We've discussed waiting until the first of the year to kind of get back on that.
Well, I'm searching for somebody now. It's hard to find.
Can I just put an ad on Facebook? I had a hard time.
Each happy constituents, that's not bad. All right, go on one real quick. Mr. Lefty, you had anything for tonight?
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 complaints about the bathrooms at Baker Pond. They say bathrooms are old.
Yes.
They are terrible, and I haven't went over and checked them, but they say they are really bad, and we need to do something about it.
And that is already on our radar. We're actually going to look at a plan of doing the work in-house. And we're going to come up with I think it will probably be on the meeting in December's agenda, because there is some work that also needs to be done at Baker Pond with regards to the path as well. But we think we can do it fairly affordably if we leave most of it in-house. And we're actually looking at doing a combined contract of Baker Pond and the McCall contract to see if with that, making that one contract, we can save some money as well.
Some of those may be improvements. I think one thing Mr. Look might be talking about, because I've been in there and it's just not very clean either. Is that what
No, it needs cleaning and
cleaning is a simple issue that they need to address, because I've been there a couple times and it was not pleasant.
Okay. Another thing I got is BB Road. The city, I went down today, and where the city runs out down BB Road before you get to the curve down there, the grass is mowed, the ditch is cleaned out. Then when you get to the county part of it, the dog kennels are growing in the ditch, taller than my truck was going through there. It's in terrible shape. It's bad as the bathrooms at Baker Pond.
You do
That's
right.
all I have.
Yeah, I can get them out there this week.
Okay.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Loach.
Stephanie, if it's time for me to reappoint someone to the tax assessor's board, I just want to keep my current appointee on there, the chairman, Mr. Lowell Morgan.
Okay.
So if you need to know that from me, I was reminded of that earlier.
You want to keep them. I haven't seen anything from them on appointment for your district. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Burnett?
Just going back to the call project, I know about Charlie, that he's kind of spearheading that. I don't want to lose steam on that, because we're so close to getting something done.
We had a meeting on that last week between myself, Seth, and Fred, and just about on moving forward. We're actually going to discuss with Charlie just some minor adjustments to the plan, the initial plan that he came up with. Yeah, swap a few things, and then work with procurement to do the bidding that out, similar how we did the work to Sandhill, and combine that with some work that we need to do at Baker as well. So.
I don't know if we talked about it as a board yet. We got the $75,000 from Omnitrax, and the full money that we could have something really nice for people on that end of the county, and the only dog park in the county. Cool opportunity we got. As far as the retreat goes, I wonder if is it possible that we can discuss a comp plan at this?
Oh, yeah, I think
That'd be great.
I think the comp plan and some infrastructure that Jamie and I are looking at, I'm sure we've got a meeting we're going to have on the 16th. I hope we're trying to get you in on board with that.
That'd be great.
The infrastructure, the comp plan,
Transportation plan,
yep.
and all that. And what we'll do is similar to the last retreats, I'll send out emails to y'all with requests for agenda topics, so.
And some that we already know we want to discuss, and you can add to those.
If you will let us know how many presentations are going to be put on it too, because that does take away more time, although I think it's essential for hear from our vendors, but then that's an hour or two off our time.
My only comment, I thought the grand opening went well. I think Claire's very proud of this facility. I know I am. Really, it was nice.
Well, Tim's did a good job organizing it. He does a good job.
Clarence was a happy man. He was touched that everybody showed up.
Yeah. He spoke well.
He's passionate about it.
And I will say that we're trying on December 16th or 17th, hoping the 16th, but maybe the 17th for our next meeting. I've asked Tim for Jamie, I would like to meet with EOM. Maybe once again, I suggested Tim that's doing our modeling, I believe. We want to get a good grip on this infrastructure, where we have the modeling, the needs, some of the things we know that are coming, so we can prepare adequately for the board meeting when we start looking at infrastructure, so we can give something concrete to finance, so we can be prepared to say how we're going to fund this. So if you would like to be a part of that meeting, just keep a quorum, let Tim know, and we'll make sure that if you want to be a part of that. But Jamie and I'll be there on the 16th, 17th, hopefully get that scheduled next couple of days.
Jamie, is Clarence your coach?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. When is that?
Clarence your coach at one point? Yeah, that's part of what you call it.
You didn't play football in middle school? Because he coached the middle school a long time.
I did, but they split the middle school up into 2 football teams, and I had a different coach, and he coached.
No, I know sometimes Dr. Ford refers to him as coach, and some other people still refer to him as coach.
He coached my middle school.
Oh, that's a
I
great.
had driver's ed on
I played basketball.
Drove the 1975 Caprice.
I was thinking, say, Effingham's the only place where you had to use a tractor for driver's ed. Any other people, staff, anyone else? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cooper, second by Mr. Deloach. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous to adjourn.